All right, so, hey, welcome back. I'm feeling a lot better. Hopefully my voice sounds a little bit less froggy, you know, and let's get back into it. So where we left off, we had a lot of good drums and we had a bass line kind of figured out. So let's drop this down and let's loop this. And now we have a new synth here. And what I'm going to do is just mute this stuff. Now, what I want to see is that if we can create some sort of cool, maybe not like an ARP, but something like that. So what I'll do is I'll split this and delete it. And then what I want to do is select everything. And we're going to make these 16th notes. I want to make sure that this is the right kind of thing I'm looking for here. So 1 second, let's give it a sawtooth real quick. That's a little too fast, so I do want 8th notes. And what I want to do is all right, and we'll take that and we'll bring it up. So that's a pattern. That's too fast still. Silly me. Just trying to make this happen. So that's our pattern. So we can just copy this and we can go. And we just have to bring this note up, I believe. And then this is minor, right? So we can just bring this note up to B. So we'll just copy this over. And then that note's A. I'm looking at the 5th of the chord. So what I'm doing is I'm, starting on the 5th just to give it a little bit of interest, I guess, because, and it's also a pattern that like an arpeggiator really couldn't do. And that's just helpful to like, any pattern that an arpeggiator can easily do is such an overdone thing that it's kind of, maybe not great for whatever. And I also want to bring this up at least an octave. I think I can hit Control F2. Yep. And if I put +1 Reaper will know what that means and it will move it up an octave for me. So we can do that again even if I wanted. But that's pretty good for right now, just to figure out, Just checking to make sure against that bass line that it's a good pattern. All right, one thing I want to do actually is, I heard something in my head while I was doing that, which was like to change the pattern on the last one. For some reason, that seems like a good idea. So what we'll do is so let me hear that again. I just want to see if that like idea, what that was I heard in my head, Whenever I have that feeling of like, ooh, there's something like, something I could do, I always try to follow that. Just as like a general rule. I kind of want to like melodize this. So all right, so what we'll do, I'm just going to delete this for now and kind of play with this like. Maybe it's something like doing something like this. Something like that. Let's see how it sounds from the beginning again. See what we got here. I'm just trying to add some interest, you know, to break up that pattern. That sounds great. And I love this one too. So I do think that it needs to re-trigger on that high note because that's like important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy just this because see there's 4 of those 5th notes real quick. But what I'm going to do is alter the see what this sounds like. It actually sounded better before, so let's just go back and kind of add whatever was in there. Going back. All right. So it's this note is like kind of the knot. I'm just fucking around at this point. I kind of like how it ends. I really like that. I think that's the same note, right? It's what is that, an E, right? And it ends on an E there, so it actually double triggers, which is kind of nice. So, but maybe I could even do, I don't know. Let's see what this sounds like up an octave. It's still, maybe it is just I need to do this pattern again. It might just be this, you know, just to keep it. Maybe this note down one. Oh wait, that'll be chromatic. This. Yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. We might use this as a synthy type thing, but what I was actually thinking was to go with more of an orchestral feel. One thing that I've always done with FD's music is try to go for like a hybrid between the two. Sometimes that's using a lot of pianos like I did in Delirium, but sometimes it's just using stuff that's not, you know, maybe that isn't as obvious. But so anyways, what we're going to look for is strings acoustic. There's actually very few string patches in Omnisphere, which is acoustic string patches or sound sources, which is crazy, but it's just, it is what it is. So there's basically 2 main ones and then this medieval viols, but we'll skip that because it's kind of weird. So this is strings recorded up close in a cathedral. Oh, we can delete this too. All right, so we need to do a couple of those. Plus 1 O. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Right. And then the other one is power strings, which has a lot more attack, which is probably what we'll use. It's kind of crazy, like, how these samples sound on their own, but you can make them sound pretty cool. Right? Like, you can kind of turn them into, like, a synthy type thing. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing the start forward a little bit. Because right now there's still an inherent attack to like a string starting when you're starting a stroke on a violin or whatever instrument, but by just by moving it forward a little bit, we get more of that inherent, you know, like it's starting to sound almost like a synthesizer patch. Now I'm going to bring the decay down, you know, obviously. How I feel like this whole video has been me just getting really tight sounds, but I am though really, and then we'll bring this up. Or maybe, yeah, we'll do something like, give it some release though. Right, give it some natural release. You know, like that's a full second of release, but we can bring this even quieter. So now it's too plucky. So somewhere around there actually sounds good. Now let's bring this down a little bit. Maybe bring the release down to half a second and boost the sustain a little bit. Because I'm trying to get it to not sound too much like a synthesizer, you know? That sounds pretty good. I'm trying to get it more realistic sounding, and now I'm going to actually bring the start back a little bit. There we go. So we're adding a little bit of natural attack back in. And I actually want less. I want to dry it up a little bit. And we can play with the timbre and just see. I think this is a single. See what happens. Oh no, there are different. It is multi-sampled. Get some really weird, almost guitar sounding stuff up here. And we can play with the octave real quick just to see. Sounds really good down there too, so I kind of want to bring that in. And up here. So that's pretty good. Let's bring the sustain down a bit. I want to get it really tight because I'm going to add a reverb and kind of use that as some of the natural whatever. I'm not going to add any filter to this because I want to keep it kind of true to the sound. We could play with the wave shaper. Sometimes this can help just bring stuff forward a little. Actually kind of like that. The wave shaper is really bizarre in this synth. I don't really like it for what it's kind of meant to do in a lot of times a wave shaper is to add distortion, right? But it's polyphonic, which is kind of cool. So you can hear the distortion up there. But in this case, it's just kind of adding a little bit of pulling it. It's not adding too much to it. So even up here, it's just kind of adding a little gain or something. Oh, interesting. Interesting that the gain down here will affect the shaper up here. Let's back it off. Interesting. So I can hear it doing something around there, but I think this is a pretty good. See this. All right, I'm going to back it off even further. I like what it's doing. It's like pulling it forward. It's almost like adding a compressor, but I just want to make sure it doesn't get too. I think that's a good middle of the road. It's adding some distortion, but mostly it's just kind of pulling the strings forward a little bit. And let's see if there's anything else kind of fun we could do with this. All right, so let's add some maybe some effects and get it really big sounding. So one thing I want to do is, let's see. I want to be careful what I do here. Maybe let's see about adding some high end. Maybe not so much. be careful with it. All right, so I'm listening at headphones again. I don't exactly trust these to be the like most perfect thing ever. So there's that. And I feel like I want to add a lot of low end, but what I'm going to do is drop it an octave real quick and add the low end down here. It's interesting because it has almost like a pizzicato sound. And then I think it's not really. I need to bring this up so we get some. There we go. Yeah, I want some weight on the low end. And then we'll bring the octave back up and then play with the number here. Yeah, the 2000. So what all that's doing is just adding a big ass V to that sound to hopefully make it sound more hi-fi, you know? Now let's see if there's what other interesting stuff. We could play with compressors real quick, see if we get anything cool. Seems what that's doing is bringing up the sustain. I don't know if I like it or not, but we'll leave it there maybe, just in case. Let's see if we can add some distortion if it sounds good. I don't think it does. I don't think we need any chorus, but let's just check it out real quick. I think we can skip on it. All right. We might want to add some delay to this. But if we do that, let's add it to the common effects. I like what's going on in my left ear. Hear what I'm listening to on the right side. Let's try this. Yeah, it's just to add a little bit of extra whatever to it. So what I'm going to do is copy this layer and paste it, and then we'll move this layer down an octave. And so hopefully that'll give us kind of this layered Hans Zimmer sort of sound. Let's see what we got. Come on. Oh. And we can bring this lower layer down a bit. Not by much, apparently. It changes the perception quite dramatically. Let's make sure I'm not clipping. Yeah, I'm nowhere near clipping. Now, because that lower sample actually has kind of more of a pizzicato sound, I'm gonna link both channels, so anything I do affects both channels. And I'm gonna bring in the sustain just a little bit. And then maybe even, maybe change this to just maybe a 2. Weird. Are my headphones on backwards, maybe? It seems like this would be the other way around. Let's try this. Hard to say. But anyways. I don't think I need it. And I think it's kind of not helping too much. So anyways, we have a cool sound. Now let's see how this sounds with the bass line. That's what's important. There we go. Oh, guess what? Guess what, bitches? So one thing I want to see is if I turn this on, if it makes it better. kind of does. So I'm going to keep that in mind. But let's just see how it sounds if I like really tighten this thing up. So I was at 0.29. I like it like tight. Now let's see what happens if I put the precision compressor on. Ooh, that's kind of nice. Maybe I'll just add a little bit more. It's amazing how just this little bit of a number, tighten it up. I want to get it annoyingly dry. I think that's about right.